Welcome everyone, Giocast 41. It's been quite a busy summer. Um, and just realizing how interrupting your sleep patterns has such a huge effect on your overall emotional state, energy levels, mindset, and just all the traveling I've been doing the last month. It's really taken a toll. I'm just finally getting back into the swing of things. But the one thing, that I would say is well, a couple things. Like before diet is your ability to slow down. So breath work, sleep patterns, all that stuff is like top of the food chain, top of the list of living that optimal life. And I remember about a month ago, we were getting ready for our in-person training, our facilitator training for breath work, and I was leaving a gathering in the morning, turning my phone on, and I get a message from the owner of the retreat center saying we need to talk. And I knew immediately something was up. And so after the conversation, they had some issues with permits or, not having the right zoning. And with a month to go to our training, having people flying in from all over, North America, I have to find a new space. I surrendered instead of panicking. I know, listen, either this is supposed to happen, there's a learning in it, or, the right space is going to present itself. And lucky enough, we found a place that just happened to be available that weekend. They're going to be short staffed, but we made the proper arrangements to have the training there. It's called the Ecology Center. Check it out. It's a great place if you're looking to put through a retreat in Ontario. Um, and it went amazing, And the day of the actual retreat was when the whole internet went down. All the flights got kind of thrown off, and so again, we're throwing another curveball. But who was supposed to be there made it, and the weekend went amazing. Just the ability to connect with people in person, to do a training. We also did a retreat for the advanced facilitators who are coming in that want to learn more. And a lot of the times, people have blocks in their business or moving forward. It's not so much about learning more about business and marketing. Yeah, those tools are great, but it's trying to discover where the blocks are within yourself. What's holding you back? Your confidence, your beliefs around money, your beliefs around fear of failure, um, being worthy, or all these things. So we got to dive deep with the group, and it was amazing. It was amazing. If you think about becoming a breathwork facilitator, I highly recommend it. If you're looking for a change in your life, want to do something different, want to have impact, um, check out our training, elementarism.com. So we did that. It went off without a hitch. Um, and then Summer Days was the following weekend, which is a festival up in the forest in Algonquin that I absolutely love. I get to facilitate breathwork there, and I get to meet amazing people from all over. And there's an amazing group from Montreal and Ottawa. 4 days in the forest, um, workshops and music and nature. My favorite part's usually the beach day there. Where we have party music at the beach, and for some reason this year was canceled. They also had a few hiccups where someone came last year and was checking out the property, and again, zoning issue. The zoning issue seems to be a thing. But in both cases, you know, they were trying to fly under the radar, I guess, and do things a certain way. And what at first seemed like a big problem, I think in the long run it's gonna be important for them to be able to really put themselves out there. And they end up meeting with the guy, and he realized that they weren't just a bunch of cowboys trying to, clear cut a forest. They want to create a community event and a place of gathering. So there's a lot of changes this year. And the day in the beach party, I ended up going to the beach, and I thought it'd be a quiet day, take a little bit of mushrooms, set an intention, just sit by the water and enjoy. And a point comes along where I kind of feel like, oh, I'd love to listen to some music. So on my way down there, I kind of grabbed a speaker from someone who was leaving, made an announcement at the beach, and I thought I might need that. And right as I'm about to press play, I hear some music coming in the distance. There's a friend of mine and his brother, who was a DJ, played at Tomorrowland, who who's bringing a speaker and live drums to the beach. And I was like, perfect, come on, right over here. And then friends show up, and we end up having this amazing time on the beach. And then for some reason it has to end. I'm kind of disappointed again. Expectations. So we all have to go back, um, because apparently an inspector was coming, and just going to the flow and going. Our friends are like, oh, we're gonna have this drum circle at our tent. Come check it out. So I go there. I'm like, oh, I want to go find my friends from the beach, these drummer guys, to come join the drum circle. And I start wandering off. I'm looking for them, and I'm asking, have you seen them? It's getting dark. By myself, I left my friends at the drum circle, and I hear in the distance these drums playing, and I wander off and I find them, and it's just DJ set, drums, and people are starting to come. It's creating this like party in the middle of the forest. I'm like, I better go get my friends. So I go all the way back, find my friends, bring them back, and we go there and we just have an amazing time. Some videos online, people dancing, people playing instruments, music, and the vibe was just like so high, so like spontaneous, so in flow, and everyone there was having an amazing time. But then they're like, okay, we should go respect to the DJs. Let's wind this down and go. And I'm like, oh, okay. So I go back to the other group, which are the guys who put on the floor play events, good friends of mine. I was just like, man, that vibe was so high there. There's no way that this is going to be even close to that. I was kind of disappointed, that expectation. And I get there and I just walk into, you know, the most amazing, spontaneous experience of probably like all my experiences summer days. They have this huge tent set up with tapestries, a little DJ set going on, saxophone players, drummers, shakers, bubble machines, and they're just playing with the energy going down. People are dancing, drumming, cheering, and it was just like, where am I right now? I felt like the place was going to start levitating. And the rest of the weekend went off without a hitch. It was a great experience. I highly recommend coming to summer days. We actually rented an RV this year, which was super nice. Never rented an RV before, other than when I went to Colorado a few weeks ago. But you don't sleep much in a weekend like that because there's a lot of music and things to do. And then, I came back and decided to go to Alberta. If you've never been to Alberta, took a family trip out to Alberta. Um, and Alberta is just magical. The lakes. We went whitewater rafting and canoeing, and you get this beautiful nature in the mountains and this blue water that these glaciers over time, they crush up the limestone and different rocks, and as they melt into these lakes and rivers, and the reflection of the light creates this amazing blue color, and the water is so nice and cold. So I got to go swimming there, and there's this one place at Lake Louise where they have this beautiful resort. It's kind of a mess to get in there with parking and stuff like that. So I'm like, okay, I'm gonna get the suite. I'm gonna go for one night. I'm gonna spend a little bit extra money. Probably never gonna be back here again. And I get there, I have my own personal concierge, and it's like very new to me. I've never done anything really like that. And if you need anything, blah blah blah. I'm really excited. We get to the room, and it's a big room, but it's like not renovated, so it's very old. And I open the window, expecting to see, this beautiful picturesque view, and I see a parking lot, and I'm so disappointed. And I've spent all this money, and I'm not one to complain, but I'm like, you know what? I'm just gonna ask. So I call down, and I'm like, hey, I'm not really happy with my room. Is there anything else? I'm like, oh, sir, of course, no problem. And all I just have to do is ask. Sometimes we're afraid to ask or to speak our mind or to express ourselves. But I think when it comes from the right place, that we shouldn't have anything to fear. And they moved us into another space, and we had that like magical, picturesque view. And I forgot how much I love being in nature and how different the nervous system reacts when you're there and close to the mountains and the rivers and the trees. And although we spent a lot of money on that place, it would have been the same if I wasn't there with my family. And the experiences that we have are supposed to be shared. And I think it's so important to share experiences with people. And the day I got back, I was invited to a Father Sunday retreat with my son, a few other fathers. And it was interesting to get our kids to share, like, what was your most memorable moment of that? They asked us what was our most memorable moment of being with our kids, and a few came up for me. One of them being the first time, I brought my kids to summer days. My son started selling apples from an apple tree, or giving them to people and getting tips, and was making all this money. I was so shocked, but kind of proud and interested in where he picked that up from. And his share was like, yeah, just this one time we're in the backyard picking tomatoes, and I took a picture of my daughter and my son and put it on my phone. And to see like these memories of kids is not about how much money you spend or where you go. It's what you do with them, and being present and spending that time with them. And that really stood out to me. And thinking about the most memorable moments of my childhood, and I didn't remember the things, but more the experiences. And life was just made up of a whole bunch of experiences. Um, and so, in the last episode, I talked about the synchronicity of crypto, and I really think crypto is about to take a run, a big run. And I think crypto is the future. If you're not invested, I would, well, I'm investing in whatever I can to get out of just money that gets printed to something that kind of can hold value. I could be wrong. But I invested in that meme coin, but just by, and that synchronicity of like whether that meme coin makes money or not, the sharing of that story and talking to people open up all these other crazy synchronicities, an opportunity to maybe consult for a company, because we connected on crypto, and then we found out that there's an opportunity there, meeting other people, and all these other things, so that we have the awareness to see like one little thing you might think like, oh, this is an opportunity to make money, but when you're really aware, it's that thread of that idea and connecting that with other people that allows you to open up other opportunities to explore in life. And so really just been following that thread as well, and just having fun with it. And I'd hired a friend of mine, again, who I met through synchronicity at a retreat in Ibiza years ago, to help me with my personal Instagram. So we went over all these ideas for posts, and create this post about those who took the shot, and the fear in the media. And what originally seemed to be like a very divisive post based on the narrative, I really just wanted to make it a post about like, hey, during this time people were scared, and there was a lot of pressure, and people made decisions. Some were forced, some chose. And it's not about right or wrong. It's about acknowledging like, hey, like we should not be blaming each other, being the people, for who said what and who said what because they were scared. It's like, how do we come to this new middle point? How do we come to an agreement, and just make sure it never happens again where people feel forced? And just trying to be able to see the divisiveness between what a certain group of people are trying to do. And the divisiveness is everywhere, and the stereotypes are everywhere, trying to single something out of a type of person and hating them for that. And you see wars are breaking out in the Middle East, and racism is being thrown in our face, and medical decisions. But what I think everyone just wants is to be at peace, and to not have to worry about these things. And I read a quote from a book, which is a concept of Carl Jung, um, and it's about holding in between two polar opposites, and out of the unconscious, a third thing comes. And I'll read the excerpt on a personal level, but then try to apply it to a joint level. Um, so what this book says, it was Jung's Map of the Soul by Murray Steen. Out of evil, much good has come to me. By keeping quiet, repressing nothing, remaining attentive, and by accepting reality, taking things as they and not as I want them to be. By doing all this, unusual knowledge has come to me, unusual powers as well, such as I could never have imagined before. I always thought that when we accepted things, they overpowered us in some way or another. This turns out not to be true at all. And it is only by accepting them that one can assume an attitude towards them. So now I intend to play the game of life, being receptive to whatever comes to me, good and bad, sun and shadow, forever alternating, and in this way also accepting my own nature with its positive and negative sides. Thus everything becomes more alive to me. What a fool I was. How I tried to force everything to go according to the way I felt to it all, forcing and expectations. This woman has stepped back from both the persona and from the splitting persona and shadow into opposites, and she is now simply observing, reflecting on, accepting her psyche as it comes to her, then sorting, seeing what it was about, and making some choices. She has created a psychological distance between the ego complex and the persona, as well as between the ego and the shadow. She's no longer possessed on either end of the spectrum. So Jung holds that the opposites are united in the psyche through intervention of a third thing. Okay, a conflict between opposites, persona and shadow, for example, can be regarded as individuation crisis, an opportunity to grow through integration. Coming into conflict are collective values on the persona side and shadow aspects of the ego that belong to the individual's native, instinctual makeup, and also some that are derivative of the archetypes and unconscious complex. So the shadow is not accessible to the persona. The conflict may be fierce. Jung held that if two poles are held in tension, a solution will appear if the ego can let go of both and create an inner vacuum in which the unconscious can offer a creative solution in the form of a new symbol. This symbol will present an option for movement ahead that will include something of both, not simply a compromise, but an amalgamation that calls forth a new attitude on the part of the ego and a new kind of relation to the world. And again, I feel this is where collectively as humanity we are right now. There's these two polar opposites, and instead of like picking a side and fighting, it's an opportunity to step back, to really kind of just observe, have compassion, simplicity, patience, um, and also been reading the Tao, and there's two things here, two chapters that I wanted to kind of talk about, but this one I'll just say. The generals have a saying, rather than make the first move, it is better to wait and see. Rather to advance an inch, it is better to retreat a yard. This is called going forward without advancing, pushing back without using weapons. There's no greater misfortune than underestimating your enemy. Underestimating your enemy means thinking that he is evil. Thus you destroy your three treasures and become an enemy of yourself. When two great forces oppose each other, the victory will go to the one who knows how to yield. And I think the three great treasures are that are talking about simplicity, patience, and compassion, which is from chapter 67, which I'll read really quick. Some say that my teaching is nonsense. Others call it lofty but impractical. As I read the last one, you might think that. But to those who have looked inside themselves, this nonsense makes perfect sense. And to those who put into practice, this loftiness has roots that go deep. I have just three things to teach: simplicity, patience, compassion. These three are your greatest treasures, simple in action and in thoughts. You return to the source of being. Patient with both friends and enemies, you accord with the way things are. Compassionate towards yourself, you reconcile all beings in the world. And I think this doesn't mean like just allow people to dominate you, but to not to react, to yield, to stand back, to have some patience and compassion, and allow for this third thing to come, which I think we're just at the precipice of in humanity, is this new way. People are becoming more aware. People have woken up a lot over the years. And, I think it's time to really see what makes us more alike and what are the threads that we want to come across. And there's this common enemy, which I think are elite, corporations, people who are trying to cling on to power out of fear. And I think their time is up. And I think we're transitioning into whatever you want to call a new world, a new experience. It's going to take a lot of inner work to create something new that's not based in a different form of control, fear, fighting, and war. So that's all I got to share for this one. I hope you enjoyed it. Connect with me on Instagram. And yeah, see you next time on the other side. Peace.